Welcome to Salt of the Earth Farm Stories, where the heart of farming comes alive. Each week, host Darren Grigg will dive into the rich tapestry of farm life, sharing tales of hard work, laughter, and the incredible people who bring our food to the table.
Year 9 of what ended up being a 10-year drought. Ash and I did a bore run and we shot about a dozen cows. We get back here to the homestead yards and there are 17 calves and we should have shot them. I've got Ash in my arms in the front of the Toyota sobbing. I can't kill anything else today. I just can't do it. And we should have, but we didn't and we couldn't.
Welcome back to part B of our chat with the amazing Lyndee Severin, someone who lives and breathes the land and carries a wealth of experience that can't be Googled. In this episode, we step away from the yards for a moment and ask, how do you find the space to breathe out here? Lyndee opens up about the tough days, dealing with fires, droughts, road accidents, and the emotional toll that comes with being the first responder in such a remote place. We also talk about her husband Ash, who has this deep, instinctive connection to animals that's hard to describe but easy to see. And we hear how science is starting to back up what they've known for years, especially when it comes to carbon and land management. Lyndee shares what it means to live in a place where, back in the 50s, only 6 people passed by in a year, and how everything changed when Uluru was recognised. Now, they're not just managing a station, they're helping people reconnect with the land. And just like part A, we're back in the staff kitchen of a busy outback station. Tourism, cattle work, the whole lot. So you'll hear the buzz in the background. That's life out here. I start this episode by asking Lyndee about isolation. Lyndee, do you feel isolated sometimes?
I don't feel far enough away.
Really? Good on you.
So, we're 360 k's out of Alice. We do live remotely, but because of the business structure, we see a lot of people.
You do, yeah.
So the challenge for Ash and I, at a very personal level, is to actually have quiet time. So we never talk about being far enough away. We always talk about being not far enough away. So that's where, being able to go and do the bore run and run away from the phone for a little while is important. And, people that we know, friends and family and whatever, you go into Alice and they'll go, come and have dinner with us. I go, yeah, no, I just want to go and get fish and chips and shut the door. A lot of people assume that there's a lot of spare time when you live remotely and when you have farms and stations. That's not the case at all. So for us, being able to find a breath is really important.
I can't imagine you're even slowing down at the weekends here.
It's a weekend.
Right, yeah.
The tourists don't know what day of the week it is. Sometimes the only time you know what day of the week it is because somebody else won't answer the phone. So Ash is going, what? Why aren't they answering the phone? I'm going, because it's Sunday, babe. I think it's really important that everybody understand it's not always easy, but we choose to be here. It is about finding that good thing every day. So we very much have a philosophy about find the good thing. And we do that with the kids, you do it with visitors, what was the best thing today? And one of my favourite stories is Maddie, one of the grandsons, who's now 16, but he was 3. And we'd been out in the cattle yards all day. We went out at the break of day and it was dark when we got home and he'd been in the yards with us all day. What was the best thing today, Maddie? Oh, Nana, being able to climb up on the cattle rails and do a bush wee on the cows.
Oh, there you go.
Emma Daisy, who's a little bit older, was in the yards with us and she just lost her banana. It's not fair. Why can boys do a bush wee from the cattle rails and girls can't do a bush wee? Well, go find something else. Yeah. But Maddie was a child then who climbed on top of something and did a bush wee on everything for the next decade.
Oh, dear.
But he absolutely denies that story. You do need to think outside the square. There are tough times, there are good times, and ultimately we choose to be here.
And out here, you need to throw your hand at everything.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a bit about the Bureau of Meteorology reports?
Okay, so Curtin Springs has been a weather station for longer than the Severins have been here. So we've got a recording site, and 3 times a day we go and do the weather. You're recording wet bulb, dry bulb, minimum, maximum, wind direction, evaporation, all of those things. And then we enter that into the computer and send it to the Bureau site. So
3 times a day?
Yeah. We now only get paid for one because the Bureau's got budget cuts. So they only officially pay for one, but we still do 3.
Right.
Because we want those records
That's
as well.
not a time-consuming part of your day.
Yes, but you go feed the chickens, the chooks at the same time.
Yeah.
And, I do it, Ash does it, Amy does it when she's here. Yeah. So whoever's looks at the clock and goes, oh, it's weather time, goes and does it. And it's part of who we are. It's important. And all of those little pieces of information feed into those bigger weather systems. And we rely on all of those things. Yeah. We're looking at the weather stuff every day. You're looking at the wind stuff every day. You're looking at the longer range forecast. Not that you can do anything about it, but that it might help inform what it is that you're planning to do.
And that's important data you're feeding into the system for perhaps people further east, what they're to expect perhaps.
Yeah, because, we usually get it first.
Tell me, there are times when you send Ash out on the grader and you say you just go and burn shit. Can you tell me about that?
Well, I was going to head into that just a minute ago when you asked about that isolation. We need to find those quiet times. And it's not always all easy here. And as you've seen this morning, there's a bit going on. A bit going on. So there are some times during the afternoon where I just go, I'm going home. I'm going home with the remote control and the chocolate. And if you want me, there'd better be blood. And if there's blood, there'd better be a lot of it. And if there's a lot of it, it's too late. So, because we have to be available all the time.
Yeah.
You never know what's going to happen. The only reason that Ash says he stays here is to see what's going to happen next. The only reason you have a plan is so that somebody can mess it up. So Ash's runaway place is the grader. And I like to go burn shit. So the hardest work that the grader will ever do is pushing sand and grass. And we've had 2 years of really good rain. So we've got, the roads and the fence lines have all got a layer of grass on it. We've got this really high fire risk in the region that we have had over the last couple of years. And there have been big fires in the region, and we dodged a bullet up until now. But we need to prep. So we need to clear those roads and fence lines. So to reduce the load on the grader, if I go and burn some of the grass, then it means it's more efficient for the grader and we can get more kilometres done without as much pressure and hard work on that big piece of equipment. So I've got an accufier on the back of the ute. So historically you'd go out with people with bugs. You'd have people walking in the Toyota, or you'd have the bug on the quad, or we had the big flamethrower. You've got the flamethrower, you've got somebody using it, you've got somebody spotting, you've got somebody driving the vehicle. So you need to have 3 people. That's not always easily achievable. With the accufier on the back of the ute, I can go out on my own and I can cover a fair amount of space. Put the talking book on in the cab, take the mandarins and the chocolate and run away from home for a few hours.
Good. And you'll pick the right temperature, the right wind, and all that sort of stuff. And really this is just to create a fire break from those idiots on the road throwing a smoke butt out or whatever it might be.
The biggest threat for us for fires are deliberately lit fires along the roadway, and it's not a cigarette butt.
I don't understand that. I still don't.
And we've got 2 public roads that run through the station, and that's where our biggest fire risk comes from. And most of them are from the local communities, where media continues to say that there is only one part of the community that cares about country, that knows how to use fire, that cares about animals, and that's actually not true.
No.
And traditional mosaic burning is the best way to burn, absolutely. And we all do that. Driving down the roadside and lighting up 50 kilometres of roadside is not mosaic burn.
No.
That's arson on somebody else's property. So that's where our biggest threat comes from.
Yeah. And I sometimes wish the media would get hold of the good things that you are doing out here, and not just what they perceive to be bad or what's going to make a story for them. You're doing a lot of really good things out here.
And we're not the only ones. Most primary producers, most farmers are doing exactly the same thing with their land, their production systems, their situation. And it really hurts when you get the ongoing, oh, but farmers just rape and pillage. Well, we don't.
No.
And anybody who took half a breath would know that we didn't, or that we don't care about animals. You know, you're just happy to go out and shoot something. The first week of November 2009, year 9 of what ended up being a 10-year drought, Ash and I did a bull run and we shot about a dozen cows. We get back here to the homestead yards and there are 17 calves, 16 of whom are twins. And we don't get a lot of twins, but at that stage, lots of people in the region and us certainly had a lot of twins on the ground. So was that Mother Nature going, I'm just going to throw everything at it because times are so tough? Or I know that in a little bit, time's going to get a bit better. Who knows? 17 calves in the yard. And we should have shot them. I've got Ash in my arms in the front of the Toyota sobbing. I can't kill anything else today. I just can't do it. And we should have. But we didn't and we couldn't. So, you know, anybody who thinks that people on the land like to kill things are just so stupid, basically. And Ash often says that as he's got older, those things actually get harder.
Yeah.
So he'll do some things, you know, I can do it. Do I want to do it? Of course not. But I can do it if I have to. But he will always do it so I don't have to.
They're bloody tough days.
They are tough days, you know. But you only need to see Ash scratching the cocky out the back or walking across the yard with all of the guinea fowl chasing him because it's time to be fed. The guinea fowl following him out to the petrol bowsers going, it's time to be fed. You know, he has the most amazing connection with animals that I have ever seen.
Really?
And a lot of people think that he's the toughest thing. Like most men, he's just marshmallow. That's marshmallow.
Well, to our listeners, you'll find out more about Ash in a couple of episodes' time. We're going to have a long chat to Ash. Can you tell me a bit about the biodiversity here? You must have some interesting little creatures that come about sometimes.
I think the most interesting thing is that there's a lot of stuff in this part of the world that nobody knows about. So, you know, we've got CSIRO, 2 guys from CSIRO arriving today to look for some bird samples to go into the national range sample collection thingy. I don't know the technical name. So we're happy to work with any of the scientists who are coming through looking to do things. There's 2 reasons for that. One is that we like to have that information because they're looking at things in a different way to what we do. But it also gives us the science. So we say that we're doing a pretty good job. We believe that with every fibre of our being, but nobody will believe us because they think that we're just lying. So if you've got some science underneath it, so, you know, we've had people out studying the parentes. So if you think about it, the parentes and the eagles and the dingoes are on the top of their food chains. If they're doing okay, the whole food chain's doing okay. So, you know, these guys were able to do the research around the parentes about numbers and diversity and, you know, the whole demographics, being able to show that we had juveniles as well as adults. So, you know, all of those things all fit together.
A parentes?
Parentes, big goannas.
Right.
The big goannas.
And they'd be 5-6 feet long.
Yeah. So the diversity is really important. The landscape works because of the diversity. And that's in the plants and in the reptiles and in the bird life and in the mammals. And just because you don't see it doesn't mean it's not here. So one of the favourite things that I do with the grandkids is across the road on the big sand dune, tell me what the story is. So you're going to see, and I think that's really important for visitors coming into the region, have a look and see what the story is. You may not see the hopping mouse, but you can see the tracks.
Yeah.
You may not see the snakes, but you can see the tracks.
Yeah.
And being able to understand that. You may not understand everything that you see, but stop and have a look at the sand and just see how much activity there is just mind-blowing. My personal passion is that real intricacy. So yes, we've got all the big stuff. We've got big skies, we've got big horizons, we've got big animals, we've got all of that. But what are the ants doing? And why are they collecting just that one type of seed? And why is the ant's nest 1 foot away from it completely collecting a different type of seed? What's happening with all of that? That diversity is what makes the landscape productive and makes it so safe. We've got carbon stuff, and there is a new biodiversity criteria. And we were quite hopeful that the biosecurity stuff would work a little bit differently to the carbon. They're not.
Is this for biodiversity credits versus carbon credits?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
And are you doing a carbon number?
No. Because we got nowhere to go. So if you've been doing the right thing for a long period of time.
That's right.
Carbon and the biodiversity are based on change. So it's about baseline and then improving that. But if you've been doing that, then you've got nowhere to go.
So in some ways you're better off to run it down, then go and get your number and increase it.
Those people who have, does everybody do a most perfect job? Of course not. You're always going to have some people who do things differently. But they're the ones who can now be monetised because they can make that improvement.
Yeah.
So there's quite a lot of chatter sometimes about, the stations in the Northern Territory don't care because they're not doing any carbon stuff. Well, that's because we're already doing it.
Yeah.
We've got nowhere to go.
It's a shame that's not recognised.
No. So there's no recognition about what we're already doing. It's only about what that change is. So, and then they go, do your herd improvement. Yeah, well, we've already done that. So anything that we could possibly do now is incremental, and the administrative load around that is untenable. So we had hoped that the biodiversity would operate a little bit differently, but they're not. They're stepping in at doing exactly the same as the organic. So it's about change. We think that diversity is important. We know that it's what makes the landscape work well. We'll continue to do that.
Running a station is a big business, and costs are rising. We've got insurances rising. Compliance is making it more difficult to stay in front. It's a struggle, isn't it?
Yeah. So it used to be, and we'll just say the boys, but it was the girls as well. The boys went out and got a trade. Mechanic, electrical, drilling, whatever. And it was the skills of that trade, those hand skills, that gave you the skills to run the station. That's how it was for quite a long time. You needed those mechanical skills to make things work. That's not the case anymore. We're running multi-million-dollar businesses. You need your business degree, you need your legal degree, you need your accounting degree. It's about risk management. So the bulk of the work that I do in running the office is about compliance. And no one of those things is extremely onerous on their own, but it's just how much of them. Every day, you've got something that needs to be done. We're talking about insurance. I've got 3 insurance policies on my desk at the moment that I need to check, get back to them so that we make sure that things are all right for this year. We've got the underwriters going, we need you to do something extra. Now, we don't have any claims. We haven't had any claims. We've pumped a lot of money into the insurance industry over the years, and they're now saying, well, we need you to bund all the storage tanks and meet the current standards. Now, it's not a directive, but the threat is in writing that they won't insure us if we don't. Now, that's not something I can pass on to a shareholder. That's a cost that we have to bear. So you either go and buy all new tanks that are all self-funded, or we've got to look at how we can make something work, which was not on the plan and is going to cost a lot of money to get there.
You just can't have beef as the only income stream.
No.
Can we just touch on the tourism side of the business? Because we are going to do a whole new episode on the tourism and what they learn about that. But you've got a tourism business here too.
Yep. We are diversified. In the first, Peter and Dawn, Ash's mum and dad, came out in 1956 to take over the station. And Curtin Springs at that point was the end of the road. So the Rock did not exist as a tourist destination in 1956. Two-wheel track that came to here, less than a two-wheel track that went any further. The first year they were here, 6 people drove down the road.
Really? In the 12 months?
In the 12 months. 2 friends who believed that they had perished and were on a body recovery mission. 2 stock and station agents who wanted them to borrow some more money to buy some more cows. And 2 what we would now call tourists. Second year, 50% increase, so 9 people. 15 people in 2 years drove down the road to get to here. So as into the late 50s, there was a gentleman in Alice Springs by the name of Len Chewett. He's never been given the recognition that he deserves for his role in getting the industry developed. So he believed that there was potential in the Rock, that people would come and see it. So he started bringing buses out from Alice Springs during the winter. They didn't operate in the summer. It was a 2-day trip from Alice Springs to here. And then in the non-air conditioned bus with the petrol drums in the aisle, drop off the petrol, pick up water. Took a long time to establish permanent water out at the Rock, and he would take his visitors out. Ultimately, Pete and Dawn said, why don't we make your guys a cup of tea and a sandwich? Because they got here, they had that inch of rain, it then didn't rain again for 9 years. So they're a young couple with stars in their eyes, loves grand adventure about trying to grow food in the desert, grow protein in the desert, and there's no rain. So they needed another source of income, an off-farm income. And so let's make your guys a cup of tea and a sandwich, they said to Len. And so that was the start of the tourist side of the business now. So we were the first tourist stop outside Alice Springs, and we were the first wayside inn in Central Australia. So we've got 27 accommodation rooms, campground, fuel store, restaurant. So we deal with the individual traveller, and we do a lot of work with groups, bus groups that are moving through the region. So yes, that keeps us out of mischief.
Absolutely. And we're just sitting beside the bar where they used to serve the sandwiches and cups of tea.
Yeah. So we're sitting in the stone house in the kitchen, and there's a mark on the wall where there was a bench where Dawn used to serve scones and cups of tea, because a lot of the buses came through overnight. It wasn't just during the daytime. There weren't all the workplace health and safety requirements around driving, and most of the visitors into the region came in those structured ways rather than driving themselves. So so there's a lot of history in this room.
Absolutely. It's a beautiful building. And already this morning, life is hectic for you. There was a lot happening here this morning. I've heard you say you never know what's going to walk in the door.
And you missed all the fun and games last night after you went home. So because of the remote location, we have to deal with a lot of things as that first response. So whether somebody may be having a medical issue in the campground, and then we're the ones doing that first medical response, talking to the ambulance, getting stuff sorted, dealing with, we always call it getting people's itineraries back on track. So they were supposed to be somewhere today, but he's had a heart attack and has been flown out. So we now need to organise how she gets the caravan to somewhere else. And you're dealing with whatever may be going on in people's lives, and we're at that intersect. So, there's lots of things that can happen on a day-to-day basis that happen in other people's lives that we then touch on. Medical is often the big one, but they could be having vehicle issues. They could have had an accident down the road. So you're dealing with all of that all of the time. And then we've got whatever's going on inside the business. So this morning we've had a hot water system that's not playing the game. What do we need to do to get that sorted? Have we got a spare one in the shed? What are we going to do about the filters? What is the issue, and can we get that sorted today? And have I got that room booked tonight? Do I need to go and change things around? So it's about just responding to what's walking in the door at any given point, because you do not know what's going to be on the phone and you do not know what's going to walk in the door. Sometimes it's really good stuff, but often it's a situation that somebody else doesn't know how to sort out because this isn't their home environment. So we'll go, okay, we need to put in a call to the police so that there's a police record, that if somebody else reports a car on the side of the road, then they at least know that they haven't got somebody missing.
Yep.
Do we need medical attention? How do we talk to the NRMA or the equivalent about how we get your vehicles sorted? How do we work out how you can get to where you need to go to hop on the plane? So a lot of that itinerary correction we're involved with. And then it's, all of our normal day-to-day stuff. What have we got groups coming in for the business today? Is the kitchen trying to prep for groups? Are we setting tables? How busy is the fuel bowser? The phone's been pretty quiet this morning while we've been doing this. That's not always the case. So there's just a lot of those pieces. And again, not all of them are very complicated. It's just that there can be a lot of them at the one time.
Well, they could be very complicated to some people, but you seem to handle it quite well.
Well, absolutely. And our job is to identify what can be done. So do we need police? Do we need the ambulance? And they're an hour away. So even if they, hopped in the car as soon as I've hung up, which they do, they're still an hour away. It's about then just calming. Let's sit and have a cup of tea. Yes, looks like he might have had a heart attack, but we've got him on the oxygen and he's coherent and he's okay and the medical team's on the way. So let's have a cup of tea and let's think about what it is that we need to do and calm the rest of the mob, because the person does not need everybody else having an opinion. So, putting them in here, having a cup of tea, having a joke, making sure that, if we think that they might end up being medevaced out, they'll go back to Yulara and then potentially go into Alice Springs from there, then we need to make sure the person here, have you got the bag with their medication and their phone charger and a change of undies, because you won't be able to go on the plane. So, we need to think about getting you sorted so you can get into Alice. But when the ambulance is ready to go, they have to have everything that they need. We don't want to be holding them up. Let's take the time to have that breath, make sure you've had something to eat. There's lots of personal situations that are happening in people's lives that we get to see and provide that support with. Not all of it's easy.
No.
And some of it can be hard. But it's also, what is it that you can do? I remember quite a long time ago now, but sitting with the body of a young woman who was killed in the car accident, and an international visitor, and she was only in her early 20s. And so I sat with her while everything else was going on, because that's what I would want someone to do for my child.
Good on you.
So everybody stay away. There's nothing anybody can do at this point, but I'm sitting here holding a hand. And that was the most important thing that I could do on that day.
Thank you.
So there's some of that stuff where just take a breath. We'll get through it. We'll sort it out. Let's see what the morning brings. Sometimes is what the conversation needs to be.
Well, as I get to know you over the last 24 hours, I feel quite privileged to just grab you for an hour or so here this morning and have this amazing chat. All right, Lyndee, we're up to the off-the-wall questions. I'm not sure if you've had a look at these or not yet.
Well, I did.
Let's see how we go. What do people misunderstand about you most?
I think part of it is that what we were talking about earlier, there is this perception that we're just sitting around waiting for someone to tell us what to do in whatever scenario that is. And that's simply not the case. The fact that we've got any spare time, I think is. But as you've said, you only need to be here for a fairly short period of time to understand that. And even your question earlier about, do we think we're isolated? Well, no. It's actually the exact opposite. I suppose that is about how many layers we have to deal with. And your layer is really important to you, but it's actually only one of the layers that we're dealing with. And I think that's something that a lot of people just don't understand.
Yeah. If you could give your 18-year-old self some advice, what would it be?
I thought about that one and I couldn't actually come up with anything because I really wouldn't want to change very much. I went back to uni much older. I started uni at that stage but didn't do it. I went back to uni and did my business degree. I wouldn't change that. I would have said, do it at 18 instead of the science degree.
How old were you when you went back?
24,
Yeah.
25.
Good
So I
on
went
you.
back and did my business degree at that point. So I think just get on with it. Just keep doing it. You made pretty good decisions on the way through. Were they all perfect? Of course not.
No.
But I wouldn't be here if I hadn't made those decisions.
We've got to make mistakes to learn, don't we?
Yeah.
What's something you've said to a cow that no human has ever heard you say?
Well, we don't, we mutter to the cows. So I don't.
Come on, Lyndee, you'd have a conversation out there with them.
Yeah, usually it's about, okay, ladies, walk it up, walk it up, walk it up. But everybody hears that. So, sometimes you're going, well, I wish I could go with you. Let's just go out the paddock. I wish I could go with you for the afternoon.
All right, then, if your boots could talk, what story would they tell first?
Well, that you actually need to have comfortable boots.
Yep.
So,
What sort are your boots?
well, I actually most of the time wear wool sneakers, which are really quite comfortable, and they need to not be too heavy. So many of the boots now are just so heavy that at the end of the day, so I wear pull-on boots in the yards,
Yep.
and most of the time I've used just pull-on shoes, rather than the full boots. But the last lot I got had steel caps in them and they were just so heavy that you just couldn't walk in them. So the boots need to not be too heavy at the end of the day, and they need to be comfortable. The young ones who wear just stupid shoes, going, well, that's probably something you're going to regret a bit later.
Yeah. What's one thing you do on the farm that would make our city folks panic?
There's so much of it. Dealing with things like snakes and spiders, it's amazing how many people are just completely scared of spiders. You'll have the British backpacker boy come in and go, there's a redback in the toilet. Can I go and use the ladies' toilet? Yeah.
Really?
No. What size foot have you got?
Yeah.
12. Your foot is bigger than the spider. Go and deal with the spider. I don't have any fear around snakes, for example.
Yeah.
If they're close to the homestead here, then we do kill them because they are a risk to everybody. But there's a lot more snakes around than you're ever going to see.
You must have some different varieties too.
Yeah, we've got quite a number, and the mulga snakes and things can kill you.
Yeah.
So, but they're not like the tigers where they're aggressive. They're going to try and get away from you. If you're having trouble with a mulga snake, you've put it in a position where it's got no choice. So that's your fault, not somebody else's.
Are the browns the most common?
So we've got some of the taipans and we've got browns, and the mulgas are actually a black. So they're, we've got a range of different types, and then we've got the pythons, and then we've got the little, the little ones.
Yeah, little whip snakes.
Yeah. So, we've got quite a lot of different reptiles and things. So I think just dealing with it, whatever it is, whether it's the blood because somebody's hurt themselves, usually a tourist who's done something silly, and then it's also about the volume. I think all the different things that we have to deal with, and all of those pieces that you need to keep in your brain at the same time. A lot of people just don't get that, and have never had to experience. So they just don't understand sometimes about how I could remember to have made sure that we've put that in the ute when we're going out to do something. You need to be doing that because it could be 50 k's that you've got to come back and get something.
And talking about the ute and what you put in there, what's in your glove box that might surprise people?
There's always dried fruit. You're taking chocolate out with you on a day-to-day basis, but I always have dried fruit because if it goes to hell in a handbasket, the fruit's going to still be there.
Yeah.
The chocolate might be long gone. And the speakers. So I like the talking books. I've never been a huge music fan for long things, like in the cars and stuff. We do the talking books. So, and not every vehicle has got a radio that's Bluetooth enabled. No. So have the good speaker that you can hang on the radio and you can just disappear into the book for a little while.
Or a good podcast, and our
Or
listeners will have a good one here.
Or a good podcast, absolutely.
What song do you secretly belt out when no one's around?
Anything Meatloaf.
Do you?
Yeah,
Really?
yeah.
All right. What time of the day do you get your best work done?
Usually those really early hours of the morning. So if I'm not able to sleep, there's no point in doing it all in your head and then getting up and doing it all again.
Yeah.
So I'll, 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
And what you can get done in an hour then is more than I can get done in a day.
Yeah.
So I'll take those bites in the middle of the night, and we're just across the lawn. It's not as though I've got to get in the car and go to the office. And I don't take the computer home. When we go home,
That's it.
because I'm on it all day. So I don't take it home. When we go home, I'll take the remote control and I can watch as much trashy TV as you like, but I don't take the computer home. So I'll often come over and just belt out, clear up what's on the desk, and then go back to bed.
And get some sleep.
Yeah.
If you could have a coffee or a cold drink with anyone, who would you choose?
My grandmother.
Yeah.
So we grew up on the farm, and my grandmother Nana lived on the farm with us. We lived on the farm with her.
Near Wollongong?
No, this was in the Riverina. So I was born and bred at Lockhart between Wagga and Albury.
Not far from me.
Yeah.
I'm not Wodonga.
Yeah. So at Lockhart. So that's where I grew up. And I lost Nana when I was 13, and she was a huge influence in my life and still is. And when I read that question, I went, I'd just like to sit in Nana's kitchen and have a cup of tea with her. So that's why I'm Nana to my grandchildren.
Good on you, Lyndee.
Because Nanas are pretty special people.
They are. And my last question, which is always the same, if you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be?
Why would you want to be anywhere else? So, and this is obviously a question that we're facing. We're not 21 anymore. It's, what are we doing and how long can we do it and where do we want to do it? We don't want to be anywhere else. So there's lots of places on the station where you can go, well, I could just go and set something up at Golden Valley. So we don't want to be anywhere else. It would be nice to be able to have a few of those free hours in the day, but we don't want to be anywhere else. There are some places that you might want to go visit. Our run away from home place is that northwest corner of Tassie. So, go to somewhere like Boat Harbour Beach where you can sit on the beach and behind the glass under the heater and watch the water. But we haven't been able to get down there since before COVID.
But down the track, you're going to have to slow down a little bit.
Who says?
Use it or lose it, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, and that's that's part of the equation. We haven't got any easy answers to that intergenerational succession planning issue at the moment, and it is about making some of those changes to how we work so that we do get to come home. So that's important. That's a really big issue for us at the moment about how we're doing that. Can we do it in an easier way? But yeah, we don't want to be anywhere else.
Well, Lyndee, I have loved this chat this morning. I've learnt so much. You're a wealth of knowledge. Another one of these amazing people that love the land, you care for the land, you love the animals, and you're doing some extraordinary things. So thank you.
That's such a lovely thing to say. And I used to believe that most people could do what we do. The older I get, the less and less and less people can do what we do. And it's a real honour for us to have the stewardship of the land that we're responsible for, to put food on people's tables, to be able to share this amazing part of Australia with visitors coming in and just giving them a taste of, what does it take to live here, to raise a family here, to run a business here. I think it's really important because in Australia particularly, we're losing that connection. So many people have no connection with the land, where their food comes from, where their fibre comes from, where their timber comes from to build their house.
That's right. It's not just food, is it?
No.
It's product as well. Yeah.
So we don't, and that's really important. And when we've got the opportunity to be able to share our story a little bit. So thank you so much for that opportunity.
My pleasure.
A huge thank you to Lyndee Severin for sharing her time, her stories, and her heart. It's not every day you meet someone with that much grit, warmth, and insight all rolled into one. If you've been listening closely, you'll know this isn't just about cattle or the outback. It's about connection to the land, to animals, and to each other. Thanks for joining us. Keep your hands dirty and your spirits high.